it's Meryl. Welcome back to my channel. For this video, we will be talking about the cost of living in France, and this will be the part 3 of my Filipino International Student series. So before we get into the monthly budget, I just want to discuss some things that you will have to pay for but are not necessarily included in your monthly budget. So for my previous video in this series, I talked about the French student visa process, and I will be putting the link above. And as I've mentioned in the previous video, you will have to pay 99 euros for the visa and 50 euros for the visa if you are part of an EEF country. But the Philippines is not part of the EEF procedure, so you will be paying 99 euros if you're applying from the Philippines. As I've mentioned, the minimum requirement from the French government to be able to get the visa is 650 euros per month. However, this may not be enough depending on where you live. Next, of course, you will have to fly to France, so you have to take into account that you also need to pay for a flight. So normally, if it's just one way, it's going to be about 850 euros depending on how early you get your visa and depending on how early you book the flight. So next on the cost would be the tuition fees. Normally, you would have to pay annually. For the French public schools, it's about 2,770 euros for the bachelors and 3,770 euros for the master. However, it still depends on your university. For example, for my university, it is a French public school, and I had to pay about 4,500 euros during my time. But that already included my health insurance and my civil liability insurance, I believe. And of course, you have to take into account that if you're applying for a business school or a private school, you will have to pay more. And to know the tuition fees, you should check out the university website because it really is individual and it depends on the university, especially if it's private. Next, you have to take into account that you may have registration fees, CVEC or civil liability insurance, also the housing insurance or different kinds of insurance, and I would put aside 300 euros for all of this, and I hope it's enough, but that really depends on the city you live in. But I think 300 euros is the safe amount for these other expenses that you probably didn't know of. So now, for the monthly budget, I will be discussing 3 cities. I will be explaining Dijon, Lyon, and Paris. The reason is that this will be your benchmark. Dijon is technically a city, but it's not really that big. Lyon is a relatively bigger city, and Paris is of course the capital. So the 3 cities that I will be discussing will be sort of a benchmark if you're living in a small town or if you're living in a big city or in the capital. So I will be showing a table here so you can follow and compare with me. So the most significant expense on your monthly budget would be your accommodations. So if you want to live in an apartment on your own, the regular price, for example, in Dijon would be 350 euros to 600 euros. In Lyon, it would be 550 euros to 600 euros. If you want to live in the Paris city center, the budget would probably be 650 euros to 800 euros in the city center. And in the greater Paris area, it would probably be around 550 euros to also to 800 euros. Bear in mind that the 600 euros is really like 9 meters squared, probably toilet outside your room, etc. So it's really not the best condition, but a lot of students live with this apartment. So if you want something cheaper, the cheapest option would probably be to go to university residences, and these are called CROUS. So CROUS, they're not necessarily on campus. That really depends on the availability, and it's very, very competitive. So in Dijon, you have to pay from 150 euros to 250 euros for the university residences. In Lyon, the cheapest accommodation is 250 euros, but there are also studio apartments for 400 euros under CROUS. And in Paris city center, it's 550 euros to 750 euros based on my research. But of course, there's a lot of options, so I didn't go through everything, but that's roughly the average or the range in Paris city center. And in the outskirts of Paris, a lot of universities are actually outside the city center, so you're probably going to be around the zone 2 to 5. It's relatively cheaper, but not much. For the university residents in the greater Paris area, it's about 550 euros to 650 euros, maybe even more. Your last option for a cheaper accommodation than having a place on your own would be a colocation. A colocation is basically flat sharing with other students or maybe with other young professionals. In Dijon, a colocation or having a flatmate would cost you around 250 to 350 euros for your own room, and then you share your kitchen and your living areas or your common spaces. In Lyon, a colocation would probably be around 400 to 500 euros, and in Paris, a colocation would be around 650 euros to 750 euros in the city center. That's already considered cheap. It really depends on which area of Paris you want to live in, and it's 500 to 650 euros in the greater Paris area. The next significant expense is actually food or groceries. For Dijon and Lyon, I would say you can set aside a budget of 150 to 200 euros per month for yourself. But of course, that really depends on how you eat or how you cook. You can of course choose to eat like rice, meat, or pasta all the time. Of course, 150 to 200 euros, probably you won't buy salmon every day or whatever, but you know, a typical student lifestyle, that would probably be around 150 to 200 euros. And in Paris, regardless if it's city center or greater Paris area, I would set aside 200 to 250 euros for your food. Next would be the mobile plan. I really definitely think that this is a need. For every transaction you have, they will ask for your mobile number, so you really need to get your number here in France or at least in Europe. But I found that their mobile plans are actually very, very affordable and totally worth it. Like, personally, I pay 20 euros with free mobile. I highly recommend it because it's 100 gig for France, unlimited texts and calls to the EU. And if I go out of France, like if I go to Switzerland or if I go to Germany, anywhere in the EU and EEA, practically even Jersey and Guernsey Islands, UK, US, Canada, I will have 25 gig per month. So that's very worth it, especially if you like traveling. It really depends on your lifestyle. Of course, this is not the cheapest. You can even get a mobile plan for just text and call for 2 euros, I believe. So I would set aside around 20 euros per month for mobile plan, but that's totally okay. I mean, comparing it to the Philippines, that's already cheap. So the next significant expense would probably be the transport. Now, as a student, especially if you're below 25, you will for sure have a discount. So for Dijon, the monthly payment was 30 euros or a 9 months pass, which is the university year, for 240 euros. So as you can see, the monthly cost of the transport is cheaper if you do get an annual pass. But bear in mind that if you are traveling abroad, the 2 months or 3 months where you're not gonna be in the city probably is not even worth paying for. So I really think it really depends on where you plan on spending your summer. That could help in your decision whether or not an annual pass can be worth it. In Lyon, it's 325 euros for the annual pass for the students below 25, I believe. But if you want to get the monthly pass, it's 32.5 euros per month. And in Paris, the annual pass from Zone 1 to Zone 5 unlimited is actually 350 euros with the student discount. It's called Imagine Air Étudiant. Actually, with the Paris pass, you already have the access to 2 airports, to Orly and to Charles de Gaulle. And it's totally worth it, especially if you take the public transport every day. The last expense would be entertainment, leisure, and others. So basically other things that you didn't take into account. I would set aside around 150 euros for Lyon and Dijon and around 200 to 250 euros for Paris. So entertainment and leisure activities, I do think that you have to set aside a budget for this. Part of your experience as an international student includes interacting or socializing with your classmates, and I really think that, you know, going to bars, the casual or occasional eating out should be part of your budget. I find that this is a basic need even for a student. So I do believe that having the entertainment and leisure budget is very, very important. For the small cities, I would say the total minimum would be 500 euros, and that really depends on your lifestyle and your apartment, of course. And the maximum I would go for small cities would be 900. For Lyon, I would go for 600 euros to 1,000 euros. This is also just a rough estimate if you actually live in university dorms, and it really depends on how often you go out. Really depends on your lifestyle. And for Paris, it would be 800 if you live outside Paris, depending on which zone you live in, but not in city center. And it would probably be around 1,350 euros if you are in city center Paris. Again, it would be a bit difficult to actually live in Paris with just 800 euros. So I really definitely recommend that you stay around 1,100 to 1,200 if you do live in Ile-de-France or in Paris. Actually, the universities in France are a bit more affordable comparing it to United States and to Australia. However, the living costs might be the more expensive one. So that's it for my cost of living video. I really hope it was informative and useful for your budgeting, for your studies here in France. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, hit the bell button, and subscribe to my channel. And see you around in Europe!